Thunder grunts.
Hey guys.
Hey, Bob.
Why don't you introduce yourselves to the best of the ability of your voice?
I am Jimmy George. I am still sick, a little better. I am a full-time script consultant and a screenwriter.
I am Jamie Nash. I'm recovering from Christmas. It was the best Christmas ever. I'm a screenwriter.
Congrats on that double feature, Jamie,
Yeah, dude.
on TV.
Oh yeah, it got huge ratings. Blew the doors off.
And now you're writing Home Alone in Space.
Home Alone in Space.
Yes.
And I'm Bob Rose. I'm a guy on the internet that makes movies sometimes, and I love Queen.
Oh, man, me too.
And that's relevant because Jamie suggested that we do Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And I think for good reason, because this is going to be a very interesting episode.
Yeah,
We've
it's gonna be
never
weird.
done a biopic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been kind of obsessed with biopics. I really want to write one, to be honest. And I've actually toyed with a couple different ones over the last few years, which I won't say because somebody will steal them.
Yeah, don't
I was
throw
gonna
it out
ask,
there.
but I
I'll
won't
say
ask
it
now.
off the podcast. I mean, I've thought of some. I'll give you some of my throwaways, like the making of Star Trek and things like that,
Oh,
because I
that
think it would be
good.
interesting.
Gene Roddenberry?
Yeah, the Gene
Yeah.
Roddenberry
Ooh, that would be
sleeping
really
with
good.
women, cheating with, the cast and
Oh, my
stuff
gosh,
like
I
that.
don't know all this.
Kirk and Spock kind of hating each other at first. Things like that. It'll be fun. I will never write it, so that's why I'm throwing it out there for you to write it. Well, what I wanted to say was about the biopics, why I really wanted to do it, besides the fact that I want to write one. So biopics they're kind of this weird screenwriter hack that's going on right now. So the Blacklist just came out. With the Blacklist, which is the list of the top spec screenplays of the year, unproduced spec screenplays.
That
or
are
something like that.
highly rated by the readers.
Highly rated by the readers, meaning the producers, the agents, and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
in the industry.
And if you look at what those scripts are, almost every year they're biopics. So this year it was Drudge, the history of Matt Drudge. Is that the guy's
The
name?
Drudge Report?
Really?
Drudge Report, yeah. So that's the #1 script on the Blacklist this year. There's another one called Frat Boy Genius, which is the Snapchat biopic, the guy who does Snapchat. Past years have had I, Tonya was on there. There was one Blonde Ambition about Madonna. There was one about Michael Jackson as seen through the eyes of Bubbles, his chimp. There was all kinds.
Wasn't that going to
Making
be
of Star
directed
Wars.
by Taika with
I don't
TT or the Thor Ragnarok
Michael
guy?
Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But all these
Yeah.
have been Blacklist scripts. These are the best scripts of the year. The Post was on there. All the Money in the World was on there. All these different biopics have been on the Blacklist. They're the ones that are most popular spec scripts. And the reason is, not to get
Wolf of Wall
long-winded
Street,
about
maybe,
this.
or something.
Wolf of Wall Street probably was on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason that these are so popular is because screenwriting has changed to the point where you can't write like Star Wars anymore and expect
Yeah.
to sell that. You have to write low budget stuff. Usually it's horror movies, comedies. Every now and then a Bad Mom's Christmas or Bad Mom's. that's my movie.
It's your go-to
That's
now.
my go-to reference. No, but stuff like that. Those kind of comedies that are high concept. What was the other one? Horrible Bosses.
Horrible
things like
Bosses, yeah.
that. Those kind of movies will sometimes sell on spec. You'll see 'em.
Blockers.
Blockers.
Great
Things like
movie.
Yeah.
that.
Great comedy.
Love that movie.
By the
Yeah.
way, I'm not
Game
sure.
Night.
I'm
Game
not
Night was
sure
great.
that any of these were spec screenplays, but
Tag.
they're the type of movies.
Tag.
Tag's a biopic comedy.
They're the type of
Yeah.
movies that are
Relevant.
selling. So the other way you can get around this, if you don't write comedy, if you don't write horror, if you don't write low budget 10 million and under movies, people have been finding public domain characters. So you can write about Dracula or Sherlock Holmes or things like that. But you can also write biopics.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the sneaky end around spec screenwriters are doing.
You don't
Finding
need
a very
you
popular-
don't need rights or something.
You
for
do
that?
not technically. I'm not going to give the lawyer background, but as long as it's in the public domain, you don't need rights. But if you start doing things like there's only one book on the whole thing, and you're kind of just adapting
Okay.
that, then
Yeah.
you get in trouble.
Okay.
But there's like 5 books on it. You can kind of pick and choose. I think it's if you can find it. Again, this isn't a legal thing, but I think there's some rule like if you can find it in 2 places, the fact, then it's kind of in the public domain. But if you can only find it in one, you're screwed. And also, you need to be careful about things like getting sued for libel, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Remember
however,
like the John Belushi one that long
Yeah,
time ago. Remember
Wired.
that?
Yeah.
Wired?
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember Dan Aykroyd wanted to sue for that.
that was it always shocks me. That was Chickless.
That was
It
Michael
was-
Chiklis
yeah,
as John Belushi.
and it kind of ruined his career for a while, apparently, until he got the shield.
I watched it. It made me very angry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty
I
insulting.
remember reading the book. I don't really remember the movie.
Because if I made a biopic, it would be about the first year of SNL.
Oh,
If I made one, which I
Yeah.
won't ever, so it doesn't matter.
see, those are the types
Yeah.
of biopics that really I want to write one day. I'm really into these.
you
actually.
write it, let me direct it.
No, I really love them. I just think if I handed them to my agent wouldn't be the right agent to do something with it.
Right.
But actually, I get more excited about these biopics than anything, which is kind of why I wanted to do this. I just wanted to, because we never talked about biopics.
and if we're gonna talk about a biopic, how well is this doing, Jamie?
It is
Yeah.
okay. So right now, as of today, and by the way, we
filming.
casted this pod before Christmas.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
right now it stands at $637 million worldwide.
Whoa.
Okay. So just
That's good.
domestically, it's at 181 million. Foreign, it's at 456 million
Man.
foreign. So
Queen
it's-
has
it's
appeal,
huge.
man.
Yeah.
it's huge. I mean, that's
Also, like I said, I know that you thought it was a joke, but I sent these guys this article saying that they're actually talking about doing a sequel.
I guess there's
That's-
money to be
Do
made.
you know how popular a biopic has to be
right.
financially for them to
exactly.
even say that word?
So it's being well received at least.
Right,
We
regardless of criticism.
And,
Yeah.
and budget wise, this one is listed as 52 million, which is really cheap for this
Mhm.
day and age. Deadpool probably cost, which is a cheaper superhero movies, like 90 to 110.
Yeah.
So this is like half of that.
Honestly,
almost.
they
Man.
could just make a sequel that's just Rami Malek just doing a performance
Yeah, it's
movie
like-
Yeah.
and don't even worry about story.
Yeah.
People just go to the theater to watch Queen.
just do like fake concert.
yeah,
video,
fake concert movie,
Yeah,
and then people
exactly.
just like, why you just cut out the middleman?
Could be kind of a companion piece to this. or
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people would probably go.
A second disc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, second disc, right.
IMAX 3D. No, I can see it. So yeah, it's cheap movie. It's making a ton of money. There are a lot of other these music biopics that have been around. Like there was the Straight Outta Compton.
Really enjoyed that.
made tons of money
yeah.
a couple years back. This year we have Rocket Man, which is Elton John.
When is
biopic.
that?
Which is directed by the
This
guy who it's directed by, I forget his name, but it's the guy who picked up the pieces from Bryan Singer on this one.
Right.
He's directing Rocket Man.
Okay.
Yes. And that director, which I should look up because I don't remember
Is
what
it
his
something
name is.
Dexter or something.
Yeah.
Dexter Flisk. I don't know what his
Something.
name is.
He did the Eddie the Eagle.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
biopic.
okay.
So it must be a biopic kind of guy.
Guys.
You know.
Guys.
And yeah, so we should talk just super briefly about the development of this.
Well, who
Since
wrote
we're-
it first of all?
Yeah, that's why I was going to ask you a question so I could look it
Oh,
up.
yeah. You
Oh,
can
oh,
ask.
yeah.
No, I
Well,
looked-
development history. I mean, I'm not looking at a computer right now, but I know that we all know about. I don't know if it affects the script at all, but the whole thing, the fact that the director was fired 2/3 of the way
Yeah,
through.
Oh my gosh.
What, and before that there was the Sacha Baron
Well,
Cohen.
originally it was
Right.
announced Sacha Baron Cohen was supposed to be playing, Freddie Mercury. Sacha Baron Cohen pulled out, and I think it was on Stern where he described
It was. Yeah.
And this is about the script. He wanted the movie to be about Freddie Mercury's actual dark private life.
Yeah,
You mean,
almost
like,
his party
honest.
lifestyle.
Honest, very in depth,
Yep.
Genuine.
not holding back. I mean, it's
Right.
Sacha Baron Cohen we're talking
Yeah.
about here. So if you can
Er-
imagine the guy who is responsible for Bo Rat and Bruno, he was probably ready to go deep
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in the dark moments.
I remembered he wanted to be naked all the time in the movie. He was going to be naked. This is what I remember from Howard Stern. I remember something about parties with cocaine, guys with plates with cocaine on their heads or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It was
no, you're right.
Stuff like
No.
that. That's what I
He-
remember when I heard this
So-
years ago.
He said on Stern that the reason
Once
that
again.
he pulled out is because the members of the still living members of Queen wanted a movie that was about the band and
Okay.
not about Freddie Mercury.
Gotcha.
Right.
And the
The
movie that
band
they
kind of produced this
right,
one.
and he
Yeah, they were on set.
they were on set, and they wanted to make a family friendly kind of version versus his like X-rated Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury biopic, and that's why he was like, I don't want anything to do with this. So that's the
Gotcha.
development history. That which I'm sure he must have read something, maybe a first draft or something.
How?
I don't know.
Oh, Sasha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm
Sasha,
sorry.
No,
I was.
that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sasha must have read either an outline or a first draft that was
Right.
more to his liking for him to sign on originally. Because I don't think he would just sign on
Right.
anything.
Right.
And
Someone.
so everything was something I think was rewritten to the point where we
Yeah.
got what we got, which
Yeah.
was which was a Bohemian Rhapsody movie I could take my mom to.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like that's what it is.
and the writer
Yeah.
of this is a guy named, if I'm pronouncing this right, Anthony McCartan. Okay.
Okay.
And what he's done before, he's done a lot of kind of prestige, true stories. He's a
Okay.
true story guy, and you find this is true in a lot of cases. Like the guys who did Man on the Moon were also the guys that did Ed Wood, and,
Yeah.
Larry Flint, and all these other ones. You know that
Yeah.
that became
Let's
their
get
thing.
the biopic guy.
Yeah,
girl.
they also did the OJ series that
Which
was
was
so
really
good.
successful.
Yeah,
A lot
right.
of people
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're still doing it to this day. So this guy has done. He's relatively new on the scene. I'm going to kind of skip to his bigger credits. The Theory of Everything. He did that.
Oh, okay.
Oscar winner.
Yep. He did The Darkest Hour, the new
Jeez,
the
so
Gary
he's
Oldman.
just doing
And
true
now
stories.
he's Bohemian Rhapsody, and then he's got like 3 new things coming out that are probably all
All true stories.
true stories.
Based on true stories. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So he was the writer.
Which is interesting because I know we're going to talk about it, but this guy's forte is being true,
Mm-hmm.
based
Yeah.
on real events.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
that's something to note. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, though, I would love to read whatever Sacha Baron Cohen signed on
Yeah.
for. I would love to. I would actually pick that script up and read it.
Well,
just out of like, what was that?
I knew this movie also had a story by Peter Morgan, and if I had to guess, Peter Morgan's script was probably the one Sasha was developing. So Peter Morgan is here's some of his credits, and again, he's very similar to the other guy: Last King of Scotland,
Okay.
The Queen, The Other Boleyn Girl, Frost Nixon.
Oh, wow.
You know, lots of things like that.
It's so interesting that these people have these careers where they're just doing that.
Oh,
a
you
lot,
master something.
a
you know?
lot of them come from like a lot of these British kind of serious guys, and I don't want to generalize because I don't know anything about either
Right.
one of these two.
Yeah.
But
Right.
some of them come from theater and things like that, and they kind of just have this more prestige kind of background,
Yeah.
this serious work. They want to do
Serious
stuff
work,
like that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how to conceptualize this from a writing standpoint or an instructive standpoint, but this felt like a movie that had everything but Freddie Mercury's perspective, which is ironic because it's told through Freddie Mercury's perspective.
It's a movie that was made by the still living members of the band.
Yeah.
And it comes across 110%.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like it's like every scene with him, there's nothing there.
Well,
like nothing beneath the surface.
If I had a criticism of the movie, and this I know this is a weird discussion for our podcast.
Yeah,
but
we're not a
if
review
I
podcast.
We're not a review
yeah.
podcast, but if I think this is a script criticism. It feels like a movie where people that wish they had the reputation of Freddie Mercury wrote it.
Right.
Does that make sense to
Well,
you guys?
yeah.
Like the whole movie just felt like pushing them into the spotlight a little more than they should a little bit, I guess.
To me, what it feels like is I used to always when I'm a big fan of reading biographies and stuff like that. It's one of my favorite things to read. Like I like nonfiction, true stories. I always hate autobiographies. And that's what this felt like, because they always, they kind of soften things.
Change things.
Well, it takes the checks and balances out of it.
It does.
Yeah.
Right.
So they get to choose what they want and what they don't want. There's not that outsider perspective to get the big picture.
The best film book I've ever read is The Man Who Heard Voices. Which
I love that.
Which is
The
about Lady in the
M. Night
Water,
one, yeah.
but he didn't have anything to do with the writing.
I reread that book every now and then.
I've never read that.
Jimmy,
Oh,
you
it's
need
a
to read
great-
it.
it's a
Anyone
quick read.
listening, you need to read it. It's about M. Night making Lady in the Water and leaving Disney because of
Right.
it, and it's It's incredible.
I-
and it's not from his perspective.
I love that.
Yeah, and
It's- yeah.
it goes pretty deep. It's a good book.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it.
I didn't even know you liked it, Jamie.
Oh, I
That's
love
great.
that. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah,
I
yeah.
always recommend it to people, and most people have like, "There's such a thing," and I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, even if you hate Lady in the Water, like read it.
He
It
doesn't come
matter.
off. I mean, it's kind of a hit piece on M. Night, but he doesn't come off as awful. I mean,
He comes off like the silent hubris.
there's
though.
some
It's
weird
like-
stuff in it, like how he says, "If I practiced basketball enough, I'd be as good as Michael Jordan and stuff," and he kind of believes it. But other than that,
But it's interesting. It's just
It's very interesting.
But if he wrote it, it would be a different book.
absolutely.
Whereas that
Yeah.
guy was not holding back punches and
Right,
stuff. Yeah.
right.
Anyway, writing one of these things is not writing. It's not a normal exercise.
Yeah, not at all.
That's why these guys probably have the filmography for it because they know they know how to massage this. I guess, right?
I have actually. I was hired to write one biopic of sorts. It was less biopic, more historical, and I remember it. I love doing it, which is another reason why I want to do it again one day. But here's one of the challenges, and watching this, I realized the difficult things. By the way, I'm also a huge fan. I watch like every awful Lifetime biopic. Like if it's like the history of Saved by the Bell or something, I will.
You're
I am
watching
there.
it.
on this very on Thundergrunt, the very thing we're talking on right now, you can find us doing a bonus disc on like the Brittany Murphy story
Okay.
Oh wow,
Okay.
okay.
and stuff, which was I think one of our best episodes ever because it's so inaccurate and hilarious.
Right. I
and
watch
terrible.
all of them.
They're great. They're
Yeah.
absolutely
The Michael
they're
Jackson
mesmerizing.
story. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many. I am there for any one of those Lifetime movies. But what I realized watching this movie, because this movie reminded me in some ways of the big budget version of a Lifetime movie.
Absolutely.
That's
Yep.
So-
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
as somebody that has watched hundreds of Lifetime movies, I could say it uses the same tricks that,
Mhm.
like, except the music's awesome and it has great actors and great
Yeah.
cinematography, and they can afford a Live Aid replication and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It blows your mind. But the writing actually is very similar to a Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
And here's what I realized. And when you do these cradle to grave stories, so when you do the entire career of Queen,
Mhm.
okay, that's not necessarily his birth, but the birth of the band, the cradle to grave story, it's not usually one story. It's dozens of
Yeah.
stories. And instead of being able to tell one story, you have to drop in on all these stories and tell them in 2
Yeah.
minutes time or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the time he got AIDS. Okay, let's tell that in 2 minutes.
It's a greatest hits album
It's a greatest hits album. It touches all these
as
bases.
a movie.
And to be honest,
Perfect analogy there, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I can't think. I was trying to think.
Queen. So yeah.
I was trying to think of a cradle to grave movie that I really love the story of, and I'm having a hard time coming up with it. Because most of the biopics I like, and a lot of these do this nowadays, like Lincoln is a really excellent example. They take a slice of his life,
I agree
just
completely.
one little slice.
You can
and-
tell a
but
better movie.
They encapsulate all of Lincoln in one little slice.
Right. What are the moments in this person's life that like specific short period of time where you can encapsulate everything about them?
That's right.
And their journey.
right.
Like even if it's like 1 year,
Even if
you
it's
can
one
tell
year.
a 1 year story in 2 hours.
No,
But can you
Social
tell a
Network.
30-year story?
Yeah.
in 2 hours?
Social Network is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And that
Perfect
encapsulates,
examples.
a little
It's only
slice.
a couple years. Yeah.
Couple years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Jobs movie is an interesting one because what they do is they
I
dip
didn't
into
see it.
4 different time frames.
I actually love that movie.
No, I love that movie
because
too.
the
It's one of my favorites.
concept of how it's told is ingenious to me.
Right.
It's only about telling the day of his product releases.
Product release.
Love that.
That's
Yeah.
it. So
I
they
haven't
have to
seen
fit
it.
in all this narrative and everything. All the setups and payoffs have to be fit into all the dialogue. It's kind of insane and probably not even accurate at all.
No, I mean
can't
Aaron
be.
Sorkin's kind of known for like getting all the information and then just going and doing what he wants.
Yeah.
That's his style.
Yeah.
But the Jobs movie is one of my favorites and sort of underappreciated, underseen. But yeah, it's four release dates, but they tell
Well, there's like 4 Jobs movies too. That's why.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one
that's
of the
right.
reasons
The one
they blend
we're talking
together.
about the Aaron Sorkin
this is
one.
the Aaron Sorkin one, directed by
Danny
Danny
Boyle.
Boyle.
That's
Danny
why
Boyle.
it's a great. It's
Um,
the performances are incredible.
and-
So yeah.
And it
Yeah.
the cool thing about it is because it spans that time, it still is able to tell like the story of how he was a bad father over those 4 things.
That's
but it's only
great.
a day
It
each.
gives
day
you
each.
4
Yeah.
days of him as a father.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And it tells like the story of him and Steve Wozniak, and him
Right.
and his daughter, him and his products,
so
but all in this.
in
Yeah.
some ways it's doing the same
Yeah.
thing this is doing, but this is telling 100 stories and that's telling 4.
Right.
So it's like these are both like anthologies in some ways.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I view them. They're
Everything feels
anthologies.
rushed.
Yeah.
Everything feels like you're only getting the tiniest bit
Well,
of the actual thing that
well,
happened.
So the point that you're making is like if we got a movie that let's say was the day or the week of Live Aid,
Exactly.
that could be possibly a much more focused,
that would
interesting,
be a
gripping
much
thing
more interesting story.
than with seeing the entirety of Freddie Mercury's life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Okay.
and
I'm
what,
trying to boil it down.
Oh, thank you.
what
Yeah.
what it does in these Lifetime movies, and this movie does too. I mean, I didn't write the dialogue down, but there's this one scene where they're on the road and they have a flat tire, and they're like, they have to tell so much story in this one stupid flat tire scene. And it's just random. It's like, we've booked every pub in the
Oh.
entire London. Oh well, what are we gonna do next?
Do the on the
I have an
nose
idea.
exposition.
Oh,
Let's-
that was painful. Dude.
Oh,
it
was
is
so bad.
laden with on the
And
nose
it
exposition.
was so lifetimey
Yeah.
that I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god, this is Lifetime.
Like, there's part of me
It's
that
like,
likes that a little
Mm.
bit because it's like I like Lifetime movies, but
me
you're
too.
right.
Me too.
It shouldn't be in this movie.
Right.
It's,
Tonally, it doesn't match. Yeah.
So on the flip side, what else that does? These movies don't necessarily have the goal and the conflict. And stuff.
Right.
In fact, there's almost no conflict. It seems like if I watched this movie, I would think it would be the easiest thing to become queen in the world.
Yep.
Okay.
The first 2/3 of the movie,
It's
there's
just
no
like,
conflict.
all right,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a singer. Next, we're touring everywhere in London. Next, let's do an album. Next, Top of the Pops. Next,
Yeah.
U.S. There's no conflict. There's no difficulty.
He
It's just
literally
this charmed
says
life.
like "fuck you" to a giant executive, and there's really no consequence.
And then-
we don't see any like pain through that.
Right.
It's just like, oh, and they were right. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
Well-
we're gonna get into it later, but you realize like when you learn that the Mike Myers character is not real,
Right,
and
it's
that
made
that
up.
conversation didn't happen, you realize they were grasping at straws for conflict. We
They
have
had to
have
find something.
Which-
They invented it.
Can I
They-
just
right.
point out that with that point, that makes me think Sacha Baron Cohen was absolutely right.
Oh yeah,
Because the conflict he wanted to explore was the one with inside
It was
Freddie
the
Mercury.
internal.
exactly.
And he was like, and he knew that there wasn't. They had to manufacture conflict if they went outside.
And dude, this movie is in desperate need of what you just described.
And
Of
I don't want anyone
some
to think
window into Freddie.
Freddie, and I don't want anyone to think we're insulting the performances here. Cause
Absolutely not. They're
No, in
amazing.
fact-
They're
amazing.
In
fantastic.
fact, I think Bob and I were talking off air. We actually both couldn't help but like this movie because the Queen aspect of it. When are we ever going to hear these songs like this or see this
Oh my
Live
God.
Aid
No, like
concert? Or
the
it's-
first 2/3, I was like,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
once like shit started to just get like happening that I knew about, kind of, and then Live Aid came, I was like, all right, this is kind of awesome. God
Yeah,
damn
No,
it. I was,
I
like,
would
pissed.
argue
Yeah.
that it delivers heavily on the promise of the premise.
right.
Oddly enough, I don't think it's a good movie.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
the
a good
weirdest-
movie.
it's
but
the weirdest thing.
I would watch it again.
Yeah,
Like,
I would too.
Like I hate saying it because I don't
Like I don't think it's a good
I
story
don't
well
think-
told.
It's a
I
badly
watched
told
it the
story.
second
I
time
hate Bryan
yesterday.
Singer. I would have preferred Sacha Baron Cohen's version, but in the end, I'd probably watch this again.
Oh damn, Jamie, you rewatched.
I rewatched because I had a WGA screener. That
Oh,
came with
man.
it.
Oh.
So yeah, I rewatched and I enjoyed the second time. I just kind of ignored all the weird, quick parts.
Yeah.
And I looked up from my computer when the music came, but it was awesome.
I
mean,
honestly-
the music's awesome.
I loved like Mike Myers' part. It's just when I learned he was completely fabricated, I was like,
It's weird.
"What the hell's
Well,
happening?"
here's
here?
the other thing. Let me go into the Mike Myers thing.
I know we have
The
to.
whole
Yeah.
thing is so winky too, because it's like
the Wayne's World thing.
nobody
yeah.
will ever buy an opera song. Wink, wink to the audience. It's like okay, because we all know it did, and they even put Mike Myers in just to remind us that it was
Yeah,
how popular it was.
why the meta? The man who made that song famous again is saying that song will
blame
never
him.
be famous.
I don't blame him.
It
He's-
almost felt like a Saturday Night Live.
I
skit
don't
without the
understand the
jokes.
It's weird 'cause
creative
it-
decision.
It
It's
felt
so
like a Mike Myers comedy. Like,
Right.
that's something you would do in an Austin Powers movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And he didn't write this.
No.
And I don't blame him because he was just hired. And he even
Yeah.
said on, like, Conan, he was like, I said yes instantly.
Dude, that's a 1-day job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
That
And
was
it's just, like, so odd. Like, did they know they were getting Mike Myers and then, like, Mike Myers that scene up? You know?
It's
It was
very
just like,
strange.
what the
It was
hell
the
is
weirdest-
happening?
and
It's
then when
very
they threw the
strange.
brick through the window in the
Yeah.
end, and they're looking
What?
at it, I was like, what is going on here? They
That
don't.
Yeah.
never happened.
yeah, none of it.
Can we talk? Let's talk
It
about
wasn't
that.
very Lifetime either. Lifetime
Yeah.
doesn't have anything
Because
that weird.
Jamie, you sent us an article from History vs. Hollywood. Is that what the name of the historyvshollywood.com had a
Mhm.
had an article on this movie that was describing pretty much every event and if it was true or not. And
It's pretty like
My-
eye-opening.
It is.
I'm
it
gonna
is.
I'm gonna link this article on the
Oh, that's good. That's
thundergrunt.com
good.
post of this episode so you
and,
can read
and
it.
we should say that these are the decisions you have to make in biopics. You
Yeah.
cannot just stick to the facts in biopics.
Not
pretty
at all.
boring.
And
Yeah.
and to before we get into it, I will give testimony to the amateur scripts because I read scripts from people who are trying to get better and trying to break in all day. That's all I do. And I actually get a significant portion of what I get aren't biopics, but they are true stories.
Okay.
I would say
Like
I would
people's true stories,
like the
autobiographies.
people who are
almost.
sending me are writing about their life
Yep.
or someone they know's life.
Mhm.
So they are so beholden to the facts. And I would say like 3 out of 5 I get are true stories.
That's incredible.
It's
to me.
crazy,
I
man.
can't believe
So
that.
so it's incredibly sensitive. Like I constantly have to be careful
Mhm.
because
Sure.
I'm talking about these people's lives. Like
Right.
I criticize, like why would the character do that? I'd be like, well, I
I did
that.
it. I did it. Yeah.
The problem is most of them are so stuck in the facts and the reality that they are afraid to break from it in order to tell a better story. And the ones that end up telling the best stories are the ones when I make a note, they're like, well, that's not what really happened, but I see your point, and then they make the change,
Sure.
and it makes for a better story. So the willingness to break away from what actually happened usually makes for a better story.
Not a script comment, but for me, morally and ethically, it just seems kind of ridiculous to not just make it a fabricated story that was inspired by.
Right.
Just say
Like,
inspired.
I don't
by.
understand what like to me, I'm like, why tell Bohemian Rhapsody and change facts at all? I don't get, you know what I mean? Like, why not just tell about another band and then use Queen's music?
Right.
It, you know, like that way you
Yeah.
could just do anything you wanted,
Yeah.
and you could make like a kick-ass script, and it wouldn't matter. Like, no one would be questioning it. It
Yeah.
would just be like, and you, they're selling Rocket Man like that, like it's a fantasy
Right.
Okay.
biopic, because I think they want to massage
They
things
want-
a lot.
yeah.
I hear what you're saying about
It just seems
especially
weird to me,
the-
that's all.
The ethical part and stuff, and to me it does seem weird. It always seems strange. Like when I do these biopics, and it's almost my downfall is I do try to stick to the timeline,
to the facts.
and then I try to fill in the parts that nobody has talked about. Like,
That's smart.
that's what I try to do.
I'm not questioning that.
No, I get you because I
Yeah.
feel the same. I feel the same. But then there's these great movies like All the President's Men and stuff like this that obviously they didn't have exchanges as witty as Robert Redford.
No,
Right.
and,
yeah.
you know, but on the flip side, I love those movies and they don't misrepresent history to me, even though
Not
I
at
know
all.
it didn't
They
happen.
don't
Or
misrepresent.
JFK or something.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
give you an example of a less famous historical events, but a perfect example. One of my favorite based on a true story movies is Rudy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yep.
if you find out the backstory, you find out that like Rudy was like universally seen as an asshole, and most of the people on the team thought he was annoying, and a lot of those things like dropping all of them dropping their jerseys
Right.
so that he can get a spot didn't happen. So like if the story was told in reality with all the players being like, F this guy who's like, scrappy and trying to make something of himself, it wouldn't be a good
But
movie.
wouldn't Rudy then don't do Rudy Rudiger's story, do a story based.
But he wrote
inspired.
it.
I know.
And-
I know.
and
I
there-
know. And that's what annoys me. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I
Antoine-
love Rudy.
My
I
favorite
just,
my
you know.
favorite title ever is Antoine Fisher, written by Antoine Fisher.
Yeah. And this
Right, yeah.
this whole thing
It's like who wrote that movie? Oh, Antoine
The
Fisher.
guy.
surprisingly, this whole thing is pervasive. Like this based on a true story thing is very important in the selling. So look at
Absolutely.
Annabelle and The Conjuring. They're the part of the reason they probably wouldn't have sold if they weren't based on the true story.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's
That's
also
true.
a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tag, as
Yeah.
goofy as it sounds,
Yeah.
the fact that Tag was based on a true story and just wasn't some ridiculous thing somebody made up actually helps in the selling. There's a
And
bigger story
and like
there.
that's a good example too, because did you guys watch the extras on Tag?
I didn't watch the extras. No.
It's a
Did anybody?
I did. It's
I
a diverse,
really enjoyed that
okay,
movie.
so it's a
don't
great
say that.
movie,
I'm
right?
fine with
And a
it.
diverse
Yeah.
cast with the male with balance of male female characters in different races.
Yeah.
The female characters weren't real.
Didn't
Right.
exist. All
And
the guys are white.
All the guys are white.
Sure.
So, but
Yeah.
that's a huge change,
Mhm.
right? And it makes for a better story and a better movie,
Right.
right? So where's the line? You
Mhm.
know?
There isn't a line. It's
Yeah.
just what can you get away with.
But it's a good discussion,
yeah.
right?
No,
Yeah.
you're right.
Because I've had clients where I would be like, well, it might be smarter to make this diverse and add some female
Yeah.
characters. And they'd be like, well, there weren't any women in this story. And I'm like, well, I don't
You know,
care.
I think as screenwriters, you really have to, ethics and all this stuff aside, if your script is just flat because the facts are flat and there's not a story there, you got to make some decisions.
Absolutely.
You got to come to the decisions. Some of them might be like pick a smaller time slice. Maybe it's just about the court case instead of the whole life, or maybe it's
Yep.
on the flip side, a lot of television shows are going the biopic route now, and I think they do it by doing the opposite. They're able to spend more time. So imagine if Bohemian Rhapsody was a 10-episode
Oh.
television
Like the
series.
OJ thing.
Oh, dude,
Like
it
the
would
OJ
be
thing.
so good.
You could stretch out, instead of just having them standing by the bus saying, we've toured every place in the...
Yeah.
You could stretch
Show
that
that.
out for an episode or
You
two
can
or
show
something.
that. Yeah.
So that's another direction. Maybe your biopics could be television pilots. Maybe that's what they should be. Maybe they should be television pitches.
For a miniseries.
For a
yeah.
miniseries. So you really have to make these choices to find how you can dramatize these things more, where the story is. And I don't really think Cradle to Grave is typically the best choice.
I agree with you completely.
I think it's very rarely, unless you're writing for Lifetime
Yeah.
or something, or adapting a book.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of funny if this was like, and then we just see like, Freddie being born,
Yeah.
like day one of his life, and then he dies.
Edited
Yeah.
scenes.
Right.
His mom is singing to him.
Right. Oh my God.
That was the that was the short they made for the proof of concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want you guys to think I don't like biopics. It's just there's a question, like reading this, it questions why.
No,
I agree with you completely.
I've been
Yeah.
there. I've been there.
Yeah.
like I said to you guys off air, I really love the movie Rockstar,
Mhm.
which is, I know.
No, but it's a great
But
comparison.
But that is a biopic that is based on no one, sort of half inspired by a guy from Judas Priest. You know what I mean? But in that sense, there's no argument about what you have to do. You just write the movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why? You know what I'm saying? Why not
Yeah.
just do that? And I feel like if you did that and kind of admitted it,
And strangely
You know?
enough, there's something less sticky to me about Rockstar, like seeing it. But if it was the Judas Priest story,
Sorry.
I'd probably be there first day.
Yeah, exactly.
it is
Bizarre.
though. I mean,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It's- yeah.
But I would if it was Judas Priest, the story on Lifetime.
Right.
I'd be there. I'd
But I
watch
think
it.
all three of us are in agreement before you go into these facts. We're teasing these facts.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell the Queen story, be honest about it. The dishonesty is the problem.
This one feels a little egregious, more so than some other
Yes,
ones.
it's
yeah.
so dishonest.
I mean, that Rudy thing's pretty egregious, but
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
That's true. Good
Yeah.
point.
But
Yeah.
the thing about the Rudy story is it's almost a story nobody would care about otherwise. Where this is history.
There's not legions,
Everybody
there's not
wants to-
legions of
yeah,
Rudy
wants to-
Rudiger
yeah.
fans
Yeah,
out there.
We don't
Right.
learn about Rudy growing up otherwise if there wasn't that movie.
Yeah.
But
this is something
Queen is
that
like
has a history.
the band half. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
for most people, like Queen
Yeah.
is like a legend, and
Yeah.
it's still to this day worshipped. So
Yeah.
it's like, don't give us so much lies.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead. Jamie.
So-
Let's get into this
So,
article.
yeah, I'll skim some of it here.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to read the whole thing.
No. I was really shocked at some of these. Though,
Oh, I was
'cause
shocked.
I did
I
not
was
know the
like,
history of
that's-
Queen.
I felt exactly the same as you. I was like,
couldn't believe it.
this
But
is-
the thing is, I understood why they made the changes.
absolutely.
When we talk, we're going to hear them. But
Okay.
I got.
I'm going to skip over some questions really quick. Like, did he really change his name? And did he?
Yeah, that's
If
not
anybody
important.
wants to know that, just yell it out to me of you guys, not you in podcast land, and I'll read those.
Once
what-
again, this article is linked
Yeah, you're gonna link to the
Yeah,
article.
yeah.
on thundergrunt.com.
Another question was, when did Freddie arrive in the UK? So presumably all these things were stuff they fudged a little bit. I'm going to skip down to some of the more interesting ones. When did Freddie Mercury first start performing for paying crowds? Because that's really the beginning of the movie. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read from the article, if that's okay.
cool. We'll bounce off of it.
Though he had been in a band called the Hectics while in primary school, his first performance in front of a paying audience was August 23rd, 1969, as a vocalist for the band, I think it's Ibex, is how it's pronounced, who had been looking for a singer. Freddie sung Elvis Presley's Jailhouse Rock. By the way, Freddie was apparently a big Elvis fan.
Not in the
isn't
movie.
mentioned in the movie. Future Queen band members Brian May and Roger Taylor were then part of a band named Smile. They knew Freddie and traveled to Liverpool to see him perform with Ibex, even before joining Ibex on stage. This marked the first steps toward the birth of Queen.
In the movie, number one, it's like relax and smile. What is it? It was like a whole sentence.
Was it really?
It was like wake up and smile or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to point out this, what you're talking about right here, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
The movie, to me, did a terrible job of even showing me that Freddie Mercury was into music.
Yeah.
Not at
Before-
all.
like,
There's nothing in
He
the
shows
setup.
up at that club and he's watching them sing, and then all of a sudden he's like, I want to be in your band. And I'm like, how would I know?
You would never know.
How would I know you wanted to be a singer? I didn't.
If
And then-
you didn't
and
know you were watching
Freddie
a movie about
Mercury
Freddie
died-
Mercury,
right.
you would never know.
And then he sings that song, and there's perfect harmony, and it just annoyed me.
Yeah.
With the two guys in the bus.
Right.
Yeah. So they totally fabricated that. But what do you think their thinking was fabricating? That's what I'll.
Well,
play
you
this
needed a
game
meet
little bit.
cute for the band.
Needed a meet cute.
Right. It's almost like the lovers meet scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a pickup scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like when we just talked about Home Alone. When I say you almost have to start something in motion,
Yeah.
it's hard to do a stop start or something like that.
Yeah.
So in this way, he's kind of a fish out of water watching the band. He's going to go meet them for the first time.
Yeah.
It adds tension to the scene.
The way the movie plays out, it's like he decided to be Freddie Mercury right then. He's like,
Yeah.
he's like looking at the band. He's like, I'm gonna do this, and then it's just like, what happened?
So it's a really
Yeah.
clean inciting incident.
Yeah.
It's really clean and it's fast and it's our one coincidence rule, right? Like he just coincidentally
Yeah, he just
had
ran
to
into
be there when their singer quit that same day.
By the way, it kind of makes. I'm not going to.
And he walked outside at the moment they were sitting there.
Yeah, he just
it's
so
like
happened
everything
to.
is so
Yeah.
perfect.
It also romanticizes the band a little bit.
Exactly.
Where
It makes it feel magical.
being they're the producers, I think that could have
Right.
something to do with it.
They've
Right.
gotten the most criticism that I've read
Yeah.
from fans.
They should.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to be the guy that says it, but yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
saying it.
Because, they're the
Um,
living members, and they were basically in charge of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they're
it
the
does.
they're the reason Sasha walked. That's 100%.
Yeah, I get it.
He said that. Yeah.
So just a follow-up question to that, but when did he first meet Brian May and Roger Taylor? So Mercury actually met his future bandmates in less spontaneous fashion at the time. He was attending Ealing Art College in London. While there, he befriended Tim Staffel, who was then part of the band Smile with guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. May had been attending Imperial College in London at the time and had been working on his PhD in astrophysics. Taylor was indeed studying to become a dentist, and Mercury became a fan of the band Smile and got to know May and Taylor.
So
I
there
mean-
was a long sort of courting period.
That's right. They were friends like all of us are friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was messier. It was more like real life.
Yeah, and that's a long story.
He was in
So
their circles.
you remove every element. You have him win them over with one note.
Mm-hmm.
You remove all the mess of
Right.
being friends. Everything.
Yeah.
They become friends in the band.
Yes,
'Cause
exactly.
I mean, I could see an alternative version of this where you just start them as friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you
it
start
would've been fine.
You start them
Yeah.
in a Smile band, and they have their first big
Yeah.
break as a catalyst
But-
or something, or they're
Yeah,
As you were saying, Jamie, like, why would they do this?
Mhm.
What we saw, the movie we saw, it was like a magic moment.
It is.
It was
Yeah,
like
it's
destiny
magical.
brought them together.
right. It
And-
feels like destiny.
Yeah.
And I would say that's what this movie is. This is the fairy tale version of Queen.
Yes.
This is the Disney-fied version, for better or worse.
100%.
Honestly, I think they should just went full with it and just remove the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Just make it like
Because
like
the
a
dark
fairy
stuff
tale.
doesn't ring true.
It doesn't ring true because all the other stuff is mauled.
And I'll
And
get
it's
to it.
half-assed.
Yeah.
I'll get to it. It makes the dark stuff feel like dark stuff in real life is complicated,
Yeah.
and instead it just kind of it almost is judgmental about the dark stuff.
Yes, we
And
can get
I think
into
that's
this.
where the people have problems with this movie.
Oh, I do.
is because fairy tales tend to be black and white. They're not dirty gray.
Yeah.
There's not two sides. There's
It
no
doesn't think
compromise.
it's doing what we're saying.
If I want-
We'll keep
Yeah,
going with
we'll
the
keep
facts
going.
and we'll
We'll
get
keep
into
going.
it.
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, to be just real quick, to be as blunt as possible, it makes Freddie Mercury's sexual escapades seem like a sin.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I
he's
don't-
punished with
It's
AIDS.
the
He's
villain
punished
of the
with-
movie
that's
is his
what I hated about
homosexuality.
this
Oh,
movie.
absolutely.
I hated that.
I
part
don't
of the
think
movie.
I
The
don't
portrayal
Which-
of it,
I don't
even
understand
know
why
that
Bryan Singer
that's
would
their
do
intent.
that.
I don't even know that
That's
their
the
intent.
intention.
not at all.
I think it's a mistake.
I think it's a mistake.
Yeah.
but
It's
it is.
not
But you
what
would
this
think
movie
Bryan
thinks it's
Singer,
doing.
as much as I hate him, would be more wary of that.
Absolutely.
It's like, come on, man.
That's why you get Bryan Singer,
Singer
and
to
not
do it.
Mel
Are we
Gibson.
We're opening this can now.
Yeah, we'll keep going
Keep
and we'll come
going.
back to it.
We'll
This
come back
is
to it.
this is a weird episode for
Yeah.
Writers Blockbusters. I think we've all
Yeah.
been honest.
Yeah.
This is our biopic admission. We're like, this
Yeah.
is a different
Yes.
DNA to this.
Exactly. Let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Right. For once.
Okay, did Freddie Mercury meet his girlfriend Mary Austin the same night he joined the band? No. The Bohemian Rhapsody movie has Freddie meeting his future girlfriend on the same night. Which
On
he
the same night, literally a minute
double
before.
double coincidence. By
Double.
the way.
Yeah.
Double coincidence.
Breaks the rule right away.
Which that part annoyed me. I
Yeah.
hated the double.
Well, because
coincidence.
then all of a sudden, you as a human these things don't happen this way, and so it doesn't ring true.
Yep.
Right off the bat.
In reality, Brian May had briefly dated Mary Austin. So one of the band members
That's
did.
so interesting.
Freddie didn't become interested in her until after he was already the lead singer of the band. I think that actually would have been in some ways more interesting.
Way more interesting.
But
A love triangle?
Again, it's the formulaic storytelling that you have to introduce these characters before. You have to
Yeah.
kind of give them the setup so they're all equally weighted. and
Yeah,
things like
so
that.
they're all new. It's all new.
A messier, Sundancey, prestige, Oscar-winning, typical type movie might have done the messier version and had it occur more like real life.
I almost wish that she was just sitting with the band. Like,
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this,
It would have made more sense, right?
just make it ridiculously convenient. Like,
Well,
I don't even,
What's the Cameron Crowe movie?
almost famous.
Almost famous.
To me,
yeah.
this was the anti Almost Famous. This whole movie, I kept going
It's a
like,
good
I
example.
want this to be Almost Famous with Queen.
Because
and
almost
it's not.
famous is messy.
It's messy. It's honest.
Messy. Yeah.
And it's a road movie with a band who
Slice of
we
life.
witnessed the birth of the band and the birth of the guy getting involved with the band, the main character. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah. So is Mike Myers, I'm skipping down a little bit, is Mike Myers' character record executive Ray Foster based on an actual person? And we've already said no, he is not based on an actual person. At best, he is very loosely based on EMI chief Roy Featherstone, but unlike Foster in the movie, Featherstone was a big fan of Queen. However, yeah,
unreal.
he did complain that their song Bohemian Rhapsody was too long to be released as a single, but that's the only similarity. And
And he probably wasn't even that like deadpan.
He's
He
probably,
was
come
like,
on,
"No,
guys.
it's a little long."
Let's
Yeah.
do another song.
probably like constructive
They
criticism.
took one constructive criticism, created another human being out of it.
Yeah.
Now, this particular spot, though, I almost get why they did it.
100%.
You need the
Yeah.
opposition there.
You
You
need
need
something.
you
Yeah.
need something to break through. No pun intended. But you know what I mean? They needed to get through something, and if you took this out, it would just be like you said. It's really easy to
It's
become
the
queen.
easiest thing in the world
Yeah,
to become
yeah.
queen.
Even this was easy because they just laughed at him, walked out, and became a big hit.
Yeah.
And
Guess
and
what? We were right.
Mike Myers sits
We-
at his desk and looks sad. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't even show. Oh, see, again,
It sucks because
Well-
Mike Myers was great. I like.
It wasn't even
I
an
love the scene.
obstacle.
It
That's the
wasn't.
problem.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it
So
wasn't.
that's one of the things that this movie is missing is insurmountable obstacles, right? Everything, if it is even providing an obstacle, is overcome immediately.
Well,
For the
Immediately.
let me
sake of
ask you.
pace.
And I think that's.
But what
the
if that
case.
didn't exist though in real life? So you're still fabricating something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What if it was pretty smooth to become queen?
Yeah.
Could be.
You
Yeah.
know- you
but
know,
then fabricate something.
Well,
Well, they did though.
Yeah.
That's what
But
this is.
I think.
But it wasn't used well.
No.
I again think it's a lot of disconnected kind of scenes that the conflict doesn't persist. So
Yeah.
we have to. Each scene has a new conflict almost.
Right.
this is what I'm saying. If this were a TV show, if this were 10 episodes, maybe there's a whole episode in the Mike Myers thing.
Oh, on that.
And how hard it was going to be to find a new person, and the decisions in the
Stakes.
band, disagreements between the
Right.
band and the manager. You could turn this into a real story.
Yeah.
Instead of just, let's throw a brick through the window and
Yeah,
we're on.
and we're
Screw
done.
you,
We
buddy.
won. And then it's a
let's
huge
win.
Screw
hit,
you, we're gonna
too.
be queen,
Yeah.
and then they were clean.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And
like-
again, it's the problem with doing 50 different stories instead of,
The
picking
greatest
one
hits.
story or something. The greatest hits. The greatest hits, you only have time for a quick conflict, quickly resolved, move on to the next.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it was, and it's, yeah, like you said, quick, easy.
Quick and easy. The whole
Mm.
thing was quick and easy. But at least there's good music.
Yeah.
I mean, Queen just sells it. It's
Yeah. Oh my God, the music.
Yeah.
So good.
and the performances. Honestly, I mean,
There was
after,
this.
I
I
could
gotta
watch it again. It's not like I can't
Yeah,
watch.
like
this
you
movie.
said, this is a weird episode. I'll just share that there was a couple in front of me, and there was this guy who, if you didn't know better, he was loathing this movie watching experience, and he would just sigh and go ugh at every dramatic
I
moment.
love those guys.
And then when the music started, he was literally standing up in his seat and cheering. I was like, this is hilarious.
But that's exactly why the movie.
That's what this
That's
movie,
what that box office
yeah,
is reflecting.
Yeah,
Is because Queen is great,
right.
and you've basically filmed a concert that no one got to see up close, like we ever did, like this.
Yeah, well put.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this one in here because it
Please
starts
do.
speaking
Back to the facts.
Yes.
controversial side of things a little bit.
Mhm.
Okay. Because I think to be fair and balanced with the controversy parts. So did Freddie Mercury ever have relationships with women again after he came to terms with his sexuality and told Mary? And it says yes. In the movie, Rami Malek, is that how you pronounce his name?
I think Raimi,
Raimi. Sam Raimi.
Sam
um,
Raimi Malik.
Freddie comes out to Mary and tells her that he's bisexual. She responds by telling him that he is gay. I was wondering about that because it's such a specific way to handle that scene.
Yeah,
This is fairly accurate to real life, except for the fact that the movie never challenges Mary's assertion. This was kind of my issue with it. I was like, this is weird. In reality, Freddie refused to ever label himself and continued to have both male and female lovers. This was almost the point where it felt less like it was from Freddie's perspective than from somebody else's.
completely off.
And,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
it was tone
hurts
deaf.
to that AIDS side of it that comes in later. and
Yeah, it's
later
like it's
life.
told from somebody in the '80s who's
It's-
got no.
It's also like it's told by
perspective.
someone who doesn't want to look at gay sex.
yeah,
This is where the Brian Singer
It really
I agree
does.
completely.
confused me.
That- yes.
this is
Yes,
crazy.
completely.
It just
Agreed.
felt like it was ashamed of showing men loving each other.
Yeah.
I was like, why are we hiding
Yeah,
from this?
you know what it felt like? It
Yeah.
felt like Brian Singer feels that this is his personal demon, and so he's treating it as such when we
Right,
see these
like-
scenes.
or
Like,
something.
I don't like
Like-
that I'm
Like the author,
gay.
the author of the piece doesn't want to say they're gay. They want to say they're bisexual, but now he's. I don't know. I can't even wrap my head around
It's
it.
The scene I hated the most, which I know this was in the script, which is the Adam Lambert as the truck stop guy.
I hate it so
I
much.
hated that scene because I was like,
hate it.
why are they treating this like it's so,
So
sleazy and
sleazy.
evil and wrong?
Yeah,
Why are
it's
they doing
so
this?
judgmental.
I can't believe
the worst,
it happened.
The worst part about that is, in my opinion, the movie never for a second explores any sort of attraction to men from his character's perspective. And we're like an hour into the movie, and all of a sudden some guy walks by him at a truck stop, and it's almost like the movie could have had this dun dun dun.
It's like it was filmed like somebody doing drugs for the first time.
Yeah, dude.
It was
It's
like
like a
that.
horror movie
It-
scene.
I was like,
That's
what
what
are
I
you
was gonna say.
doing? Why?
Yeah.
It's like drugs or alcohol or something.
Like
Yeah.
here's the fall of a man.
Yes.
And I was like,
Obviously.
no,
Exactly.
this is
No,
not a fall
This
of a
is
man.
like self-actualization.
Yeah,
and it's missing that. That's what it's missing.
And I was like, that's tone deaf on this guy's, the writer's part, and
The
and
band-
the band's part.
The
Right.
band sees it as a negative, as a villainous, like an antagonistic force.
So now I'm going to try to figure out how this happened. But I think they were trying to touch base with his attraction to men in such a short way that they came up with this really lame way to
Yeah.
do it. That
George
missed the
Michael
point,
scene.
that
No,
failed.
if I could, it's kind of like it's somebody that doesn't have
I
the
agree with you,
perspective
Jamie.
writing the perspective. It's like how Blade
yes,
in the comic books was a white guy in the 70s writing a black exploitation character, and not until you had an actual real blade we got eventually that it worked. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because he didn't understand that culture at all.
That's
So it's like a bunch of straight white guys writing
trying to write.
a
Yeah.
gay guy coming,
Right.
a bisexual coming to fruition.
It's handled
and they
with
don't
such
understand.
lack of nuance.
If anything, it's the most insulting part of the movie.
It's so
It really
insulting.
is.
So
That's why people are angry at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it made me angry.
And even more, it comes through later, which we'll probably get
Yeah.
to as well. So did Freddie Mercury really remain close friends with his one-time girlfriend Mary Austin? Yes. The Bohemian Rhapsody true story supports that Freddie met Mary when he was a starving musician. They moved in together. She supported him for a time. She was the one person he trusted. They remained friends even after they broke up in 1976 when he was coming to terms with his sexuality. I'm going to skip down. Mary was a comfort to Freddie during his final years as well. He left Mary the bulk of his estate when he died from AIDS complications in 1991. He reasoned that if he had kept living as a straight man, they would have married and had a life together. So anyway,
I got it. This is actually the part of the movie I thought worked,
yes.
Mhm.
which
I agree.
was the movie at least they do a good job in showing how lonely he is and how
Yeah.
she's all he has.
Yeah,
And even and
she's
as
his
she
beacon.
and as she gets more of her own life and separates from him losing it a little bit, I was like, that's the one through line that I kind of was like, I can grab onto this.
It worked.
I understand what you're doing. You know?
Again, even though this is the fairy tale version, that through line was a little messy. You know,
Yeah.
he loved her.
But it's like real life.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
real life.
That was
Yeah.
the real life one. Yeah.
He just because he's gay, bisexual, whatever you want to say, whatever he wants to label himself, he can still love, this woman. And if he says he loves that woman, he loves the woman.
And it's about
Yeah.
trust and respect.
Trust.
and-
and respect,
Yeah.
and they can still have a relationship.
The movie really
The movie
sells
didn't judge it for
him.
that.
No one knows Freddie Mercury except her.
Yeah,
Like maybe Jim Hutton, kind of.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
was like the next person.
He
to
gets
know
a real
him.
short,
Yes.
amount of time.
And I was like, you know what? I was almost like, I would probably just start the movie with them meeting.
100%.
I
Yep,
could watch
yep.
that movie to
Yep.
Live Aid,
Yep,
and that would be the movie that I would probably prefer.
I agree.
You know,
completely.
I honestly thought if they had expanded his role and gave us more of an understanding of what that
Because that's your
relationship-
window.
they
That
didn't,
is
they
your
didn't get
window.
really show us what he meant to him,
right.
and that's what bothered me. about
That is your window into Freddie Mercury, Jim.
Yes.
And they chose deliberately not to even explore that.
Oh, that scene when he
Um,
says he's my friend, and I was like, did that happen? Because that seems bad.
Yeah.
It seems like that's somebody writing that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like. He shouldn't be ashamed at that point.
Yeah.
Just say
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
but see,
yeah.
that's the thing. There is no
There's no
Uh,
context.
so like we're gonna get onto arcs later, but a lot of sexual identity stories have an inauthenticity arc. So
Right,
so
right.
you start with a character who's living on inauthentically, and then by the end they grow to a person who is proud of being authentic and real. And that's, in my opinion, is not explored at all in this movie. Like the actual Freddie's feelings about
No,
living
it's
as
just
a
him
gay
saying
man.
it at the end.
He's just there and he's
Yeah.
gay, but there's no exploration of his feelings about his sexual identity.
Mm-hmm.
It's
They
missing.
I think they thought
So it's
they
just
thought that
hollow. It's hollow. Even the
Right.
scenes with Jim are
the
hollow.
I think the press conference scene was what the writer thought would cover all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is the world bearing down?
Here
on
we
him,
go.
And Freddie going, you can ask anything else. You
Yeah.
know, like he's.
Yeah.
It was just I don't know. I was like, do I like that? I don't know if I like the press conference scene because it was so stylized. too.
Stylistically
stylized,
Very
different.
jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And it just I was like, is he
Felt like a different movie.
who is Freddie in that moment? I was like, is
yeah.
he fine with everyone knowing or what?
It
I
felt
don't
like
know.
Jamie.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot. It felt like checking the box,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
A lot of this
checking the
movie felt
story
that way.
box. We need to have him now be attacked by the press about his sexuality.
A lot of this,
Check the box.
one of the difficulties with biopics, and I actually think for Cradle to Grave, you're probably in good shape trying to do this because it's the only way. I think it feels like a movie that's poured into a very formula. Whether it's Save the Cat or Sid Field or something, they're trying to find things that feel like those moments. And
Yeah.
they're struggling to
They're
find them.
they're unearned is
They're
the problem.
But they kind of give the audience a feel that they're on that typical journey they're on, even if they're not.
I don't know if you guys would be with me on this, but I think the problems with this movie stem from it being more concentrated on plot than character. Does that make sense? Like the check boxes and everything.
Yeah.
Like if I think of a biopic that's all character, I would say Behind the Candelabra.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, that's a biopic. I don't know if
I haven't seen it yet. I have to.
Excellent. I love it.
Yeah,
but it's to me that doesn't feel like it's checking boxes.
I barely remember the plot of that movie. You know, I remember
because it doesn't matter.
The characters
probably.
are rich, and you know where they are every moment.
Yeah,
and what they're doing and why.
Yeah.
So
I'll say something controversial about that. It's probably the difference between $600 million and HBO. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
This one
that's not controversial. You're 100%
yes.
right. Yeah. That's why this made $600 million. Right.
Because it is a greatest hit story.
And they washed out the bisexuality.
The complicated stuff is gone.
They keep you moving. You're eating your popcorn.
It's so easily digestible.
I was also talking about pushing out the sexuality stuff.
Yeah, but it's
Middle America went to see this movie, and that's why. Like they wouldn't have handled the Sacha Baron one
in your eyes and forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what happens, like
we're pile driving through to get to Live Aid. That's the only goal that exists in this whole movie, and it's pretty great.
Yeah,
it's pretty great.
It's pretty great. That's the sad part about all the complaining. Is
all three of us are criticizing the story, and they're like, "Man, when that music hits,
because it's Queen." It's like it's awesome. It's well done. That ending.
By the way, I heard they filmed that first.
Yeah,
it was the first thing they
filmed.
Isn't that crazy?
Jesus.
If they just filmed that as like a short film, I would have been like, "This is the single greatest thing ever."
Yeah,
I would have paid full price to see that 15-minute short.
When I was rewatching it yesterday, not to take a quick diversion here, but I was trying to figure out why it was more interesting than actually watching Live Aid. You know, but I realized that when I watched Live Aid, it was on a television. It was
wide
poor
shot
quality.
It's a wide shot. Yeah,
exactly. And here I was getting the highest technological achievements of 2018 in my face with Queen.
Yeah,
and that was damn awesome.
Yeah,
so, and honestly, like all the bad storytelling that we've discussed up to this point is that Rami Malek is selling it on that stage so well about all his pain and everything he's going through, even though I don't feel like I saw that pain. I know about Freddie Mercury existing and his life, so I kind of just replaced the movie I just watched with the stuff I know for real. And it was great, you know.
Since we're nearing there, let me get into some of the stuff that is completely fabricated but was almost the most important structural thing they needed to do. That I sort of understand, but also it gives you a really kind of fake history of the life. So did Queen ever split up? No. Okay. It is here that the movie makes its biggest departure from the truth. In the film, we see the band livid at Freddie for signing a $4 million solo deal behind their back. He tells them that he wants to take a break from the band, and they all go their separate ways. The truth is much less dramatic. The band was burnt out by 1983, having been on tour for a decade. They all agreed to take a break to focus on their solo careers, but they stayed in touch, starting to work on the works later that year.
This seems like the lowest move from the band themselves.
Yeah.
The scene when Freddie basically comes crawling back to them, I was like, when I learned that I didn't know about all this, but when I learned that was fake, I was like, you guys, this seems kind of rotten,
dude. And the fact that and it's the only time the movie shifts perspective. So it's told through Freddie's perspective, and all of a sudden. Now it's being told through the band's perspective. Like, you don't even get a moment with Freddie outside the hallway where he's going like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. It's all about the band and talking about Freddie. I was like, this is so shitty.
It's like, what did they want? Did they want blood from a rock from him? Like, is this like penance?
Yeah,
for
I don't know.
It's
so judgmental.
It's really judgmental.
Parental.
Honestly, though, I think what's happening here is they're trying to find that all is lost moment to set up Act 3.
Script-wise, completely. That actually worked.
But see, I don't think it did because
I think it did.
We didn't see it from Freddie's perspective. Freddie's out in the hall. He's not even involved.
But Jimmy, at this point, I'd given up on that. At this point, I'm watching the band movie.
Yeah,
I'm not watching.
Good call.
I'm not watching the Freddie Mercury
from
movie.
It as a band movie.
It made sense,
you're right.
like from a script. It was a moment.
You're right,
and that moment in there works. But it angered me when I found out it was completely fake.
Yeah,
but if I didn't know that, it does kind of work. Does that make
I
sense?
Hear you.
So
this is a weird episode.
I love it. I love it.
It goes down this all is lost moment. I mean, you could almost break out the Save the Cat beat sheet at this point.
Yeah.
Like they needed to find ways to do this because they were like, well, what are we gonna do for us all? Well, the AIDS.
Also, there's a ticking clock with the Live Aid.
Yep.
AIDS probably factors in. Like if I was charting it out, I'd think that would feel like an all is lost moment for most people. However, as we'll see, that's somewhat mixed up too in the timeline.
Oh my gosh.
So you could see where they came up. Let's split the band up for this movie. That's about a band splitting up. Is key. And it's a trope of these movies that usually they do split up and they go their separate ways.
They even mention it in the movie at the beginning. Remember?
Yeah,
bands
they do.
usually split up. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Yeah.
And usually in these kind of movies,
they
split up, and then they almost the third act is kind of about finding what they loved about each other again, or something. You know, coming to terms with their new reality, or just having those nostalgic memories. You know?
Yeah.
So. Anyway, let's keep going.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say next. Go ahead.
Well, this one, I don't know. I might skip it, but this one was, did Freddie Mercury meet Jim Hutton as a servant? I'm just going to skip over that and say, no, he didn't.
No.
Okay, that was very different.
That's the least of my work.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me that much.
Fine, whatever. You know.
So it works.
Was Queen's performance at the 1985 Live Aid concert really as big as it's made out in the movie? Yes and no is the answer. I'm going to kind of skip over this one too. I think most people think it was a great moment. I was talking to Bob and Jimmy before. As a kid who was primed for this, I mean, 1985 was my year of music and stuff. I barely remember the Queen performance, but it was because it was in the daytime and I was waiting for Madonna and, you know, Phil Collins to show up at night or whoever it was.
Well, as the movie does say, they were shoved in there.
They were shoved in more in the early section of the thing. But that said, I'm one person. There are a lot of people that think it's the greatest moment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've definitely read that. A lot of people think that. So,
my memories of it are completely more about the nighttime. So whatever. But
Jamie hates Queen.
I hate Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to skip over. Did Freddie Mercury's personal manager Paul Prencher betray him? Yes, he did. There were a lot of things similar, like he did expose some behavior on live television or something. So a lot of that was true.
I'd love to know if the him walking away, never seeing him again thing happened. That seems so over dramatic.
No, I cannot imagine.
He just like, I'll never want to look at your face again. It just walks out into the rain, and I was like, that can't have happened.
That almost seemed like a movie in a movie. Like imagine you were making a movie about somebody winning the Oscar. That would be the fake clip they'd show.
Yeah.
It'd be like somebody walking
like
out.
Like a Ben Stiller movie.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what they would. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the big one. When was Freddie Mercury diagnosed with AIDS? It is widely believed that Freddie was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987, 2 years after Live Aid. The film has him telling the band during rehearsals for Live Aid in 1985. This was added for dramatic effect and is almost certainly not true. He gave his final filmed interview in 1987, but mentioned nothing of the illness. He revealed the truth to his family and close friends in 1989. Wow. He didn't publicly acknowledge he had the sexually transmitted disease until he released an official statement on November 23rd, 1991, the day before his death. And then it has the actual official statement.
This was the change, obviously, that I think hurts the most. Mm-hmm. But also, like, from a script perspective, I understood it.
Yeah.
Because you need to have that in there.
Well, if you want Live Aid to be the finale,
you have to do this.
You can't. Otherwise, you cut out AIDS.
Is it ethical? I don't know. I don't know what any of this is ethical, but it makes sense, like, script-wise.
It definitely feels like, if I was just charting it, it feels like, for a cradle to grave story, it feels like an all's lost moment.
You have to put it in there.
But this is the problem with biopics. Sometimes they don't have great third acts.
Yeah.
So let's say you had Live Aid earlier, this came, and then what's your third act going to be?
Him dying.
Him dying. That's the problem with real life. Our third acts, we get sick and we die.
Yeah, we die.
We suck.
There's the happily ever
Our third
after
act
doesn't always
suck.
happen.
Yeah.
So that's,
this will be like Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's where the magic of biopics writing comes in. That's where you really have to figure out an ending. You have to make the ending satisfying. Again, if it was a television show, you might be able to do Live Aid as this huge episode 7, but then episode 10 is the death, in the that's time. And it might work fine because each episode could be taken as a group, but not for a movie.
Movie needs a finale.
Right. Yeah. So it sort of is the final rebonding moment for the band
and their audience
in the movie.
I think you have 3 choices for the movie if you're doing cradle to grave kind of movie. think you have three choices. Leave it out, which I can't.
You
You
can't.
can't do.
People wouldn't. Riots.
You
Yeah, riots.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You
you
can't
do what you did here, or somehow you tell more of a non-linear story in the end.
Yeah, you tell an epilogue.
If I was doing it, which I would never, but I guess I would probably have a framing device of maybe a last interview with
Right.
Freddie.
Exactly.
that's
That's
perfect.
probably what I would do.
Yeah,
And
when he revealed
instead
it.
of fabricating that
and
that
you
he
do
was
that.
diagnosed and he told
Yeah.
the band like what the week before Live Aid,
Yeah,
which is obviously like so not right.
yeah, yeah.
But I think a framing device where he's giving his last interview or maybe having a last talk with like Jim or something.
Yeah.
like that. I don't know.
I think a recollection framing device would be great.
You could pepper that through the whole movie to
Yeah,
kind of bring
and
us
that will
through
give you a
stuff.
window into
Yeah.
his feelings about these things.
So-
Make this movie a memory,
Yeah,
and that way you could probably
Yeah, so
shuffle.
so
it better.
really what you can see is that they picked the Live Aid concert as being the Act 3 finale, which
The
we all
big
love.
finish.
And then everything else was retroactively. The breakup of the band, the AIDS, all this
Yeah.
stuff. And that is
So
where
the ending
Well, also, I'm
informed.
just realizing the thing I just said. The reason that wouldn't work with how they did it is because that would be from Freddie's perspective,
and
which
they
none
don't
of the
have
movie
Freddie's
is.
perspective.
Yeah.
and that's also where the movie gets, like I said, a little judgmental and weird, because his gay lifestyle that he went to have after the solo career is sort of what caused the AIDS or some ways. And that's a very lame, to say at least,
Yeah.
80s kind of movie
Absolutely.
perspective. With it just seems very tone deaf
Yep.
and weird. And I can understand where a lot of that
And
comes
the
from.
movie doesn't seem aware that it's telling it that way.
Not at all.
It
Also,
doesn't-
note we're like three straight white guys talking about this. I mean, he is an
Yeah,
icon
right.
to people that
Yeah.
identify with
I'm
him,
sure.
and that that's really insulting and
Yeah.
judgmental and
Yeah.
terrible.
Well,
The way that was handled,
Mhm.
you know.
and again, in the messy world of real life, you can have a great party and get AIDS. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'm sure Freddie Mercury was having the time of his life during some of those things, and there was lots of love and joy and everything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't some horror story or
Yeah.
lesson learned
No.
or anything.
Oh my god, that scene where they're all saying we're going home to our wife and our families, like while
I've
he's at
got
the
no
party. Like
I'm not
that
a family
scene
man.
That scene is so judgmental against him not being that person.
Being a family man.
Yeah.
But you have to tell a messy movie to tell that kind of thing. A
Yeah.
messy movie meaning messy like real life. Like everything isn't black and white.
Yeah.
You know, everything isn't good, bad.
Yeah.
And this
Things
is
can be
written
great.
like black and white. There's
This is
not
written
much
black
shades
and
of
white.
gray in here. And
Not
that's-
at all.
It's very fairy tale, very, Disneyfied or whatever. Yeah.
There's this whole through line in it where Freddie gets what he deserves,
Yes.
which I'm like, what?
Oh, I know. That's
There's-
exactly
it feels
what
disgusting.
it feels like.
It feels really
Oh, it's-
disgusting.
I
That's
agree.
That's why I kind of hate enjoying the ending,
Yeah.
because I was like, it does come with this really disgusting
Yeah, he has,
Message.
he has to
Yeah.
beg to be back in the band and be repentant about
Yeah.
his ways in
His
order to get to
character is
Live Aid.
punished. Yeah.
Yeah, the way they frame it.
The way it's
Yeah.
told. And I don't think it realizes
And he doesn't.
that.
You know what? I'm like, if you're gonna do this, why not have him have pride at all?
Right.
Like he doesn't. He's like on his knees saying it's happening. I'm gonna have to deal with it, but I'm here for you guys. Like, why you don't have Freddie say something like,
Ugh.
"I did what I did, and I'm not
God.
sorry about it."
Right.
And then
That's what's missing.
That's what's
Yeah.
missing.
It's
That's what's
Freddie's perspective from the character that we're watching is completely.
It makes me. I feel
Gone.
really guilty for saying I enjoyed the Live Aid.
No, I know,
but
but I did too. I did.
I'll just
Yeah.
watch that part and not anything else.
There you
Yeah. Is there? We need to talk about character arcs.
So yeah, Jamie, like this movie attempts an arc, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, I go back to the whole thing, the cradle to grave thing. It's hard to do a character arc in that because we learn multiple lessons throughout life. It's not like one
Yeah.
story. But what you see in a lot of cradle to grave band stories are these kind of rise and fall stories, is what I call them. So, and that's what I feel this one attempts to
Yeah.
fake or feel like. So there's this rise, which is all joy and throwing bricks through Mike Myers' window and all this
we're
stuff.
immortal and nothing can stop
We're
us.
immortal.
We're artists.
We're
Yeah.
going on tour and we're discovering things, truths about ourselves, and it's all positive and on the up and up. And then there's this fall, which a lot of it's fabricated, of the breakup of the band, the selfishness, the I want to
Yeah.
do solo projects, the
Sex parties.
sex parties and debauchery and losing sight of what's important to us. That's the fall.
Yeah.
And then the redemption of the final act. And this
Yeah.
has a pretty classic one of those. There are
Yeah.
other movies like The Godfather and stuff like that that also have kind of rise and fall arcs
Yeah.
that you can see
Yeah.
within them. But yeah, that was kind of what I took from this one.
Yeah, I think it's trying to be. I think it thinks it's telling a story about Freddie being okay with himself in the end,
It's not.
but it doesn't do that at all.
No.
But I think it believes it does.
it's one of those things where it's at points so insulting. You're like, how did no one like say anything?
I know.
How did nobody?
I know.
Like, my only thought is, and I realize we're not talking about the script, but it's that it must have been such a troubled production, as we heard with Bryan Singer being very difficult, and them fighting, him and Rami Malek apparently fighting on set all the time, that this stuff just slides through, and they get to
Like,
the end, have a finished movie.
at
and
least we
that's it.
finished the movie.
Right,
Yeah.
because I just can't believe that no one was like, hey, so has anyone actually seen what you're doing right now, or what's written on this page? Him having sex with somebody at a truck stop, making it like a horror movie,
Yeah.
might not be the best idea.
Yeah. So tone deaf.
Just, incredible.
Yeah.
Like it just
Yeah.
it's a troubled production where they just got to the end and it worked.
It worked.
That's what I hate about this.
I know.
It worked.
We're saying all these things, and it's like, but I did enjoy a lot of it.
Yeah, well,
Well, I meant it worked financially.
Yeah, yeah.
Financially, they
I
did
like
it.
the band stuff, all the performances.
yeah. On the bright side,
The kid from Jurassic Park, by the way,
Yeah.
the whole time I'm like, why do I know that guy? Why do I know that guy? And it was Timmy, the human piece of toast.
Oh
Did you realize that?
no.
He was the bassist or whatever.
Wait, what?
It was Timmy from Jurassic Park.
The bassist?
Yeah, I forget his name.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but the whole time I'm like, why does he look so familiar? And it's the kid from Jurassic
I had
Park.
no idea.
Yeah, he's a
I
member of
didn't
the
know
band.
he was still in the business.
He's in
Yeah.
Social Network.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wow,
yeah, but I was like the whole time, oh, that's Timmy, the human piece of
that's
toast.
amazing.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
No,
But yeah, that's all.
bring it up.
it's
Let's
a-
bring it up because
Bring up
we've
what?
been going down,
Oh.
down.
I-
Ugh.
I mean, on the positive side of this, a lot of its money comes from foreign ticket sales, and a lot of the foreign countries are even worse as far as what they will watch,
Tolerance.
and
Yeah.
the judgmental part. So I have a feeling that's probably part of this.
Also,
Yeah.
something that we never talk about on this podcast, but America is not the number one market anymore.
equation. Not
Yeah.
at all. Not at all.
You know what I mean? Like, they can sit here and let everybody get angry about the movie in America, and in the end, they're like, okay, go
Yeah.
ahead. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna release it in China,
They love it in China.
and we're gonna make $400 million, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that you hate it.
Warcraft.
Right? Yeah, it doesn't matter that no one liked that
God.
movie. It still made 700 million.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
So
Yeah.
this was a success, an unbridled success.
Yeah.
Yes.
The greatest hits take on this story worked.
But maybe people will be like we were, and they'll go search out the real story,
The real.
and then that could help attitudes. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe the real Freddie Mercury will emerge and can help change opinions and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I think the
all over
best
the
thing,
world.
honestly, the best thing it can do is get people into Queen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully that you become a real fan of Queen and you'll learn the truth and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So if anything, it did that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It feels like one of those movies that you watch and then you want to go read the book about what really happened. And
Definitely.
Kind of get the, not that people read books anymore or anything, but they can check Wikipedia.
They'll read the article that
They'll
we
watch
have
a
attached to
They'll watch a
this
YouTube
podcast.
video. Yeah, they'll
Yeah.
listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
And find out.
I think what I learned most is that I understand more why they did what they did.
Mhm.
I don't like it,
Right.
but
yeah,
I
learning the
understand.
facts
I-
and that were
I
changed.
understand why.
I think it's this one in particular is very instructive
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
far as why they did it.
Yeah.
And why there are disagreements about these kind of movies.
Of all
from the
Yeah.
start.
of all the biopics where you really change some drastic stuff, this one seems like one of the touchier ones that you would do that with,
Mhm.
which
I-
is odd. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
social issues in this story
Yeah.
for real, and it's something that I don't think I would have messed with. Like, pick another story, maybe.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you're gonna mess with something,
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it does.
You know what though? This one leaves room for the Sacha Baron Cohen one.
It sure does.
We've seen that before. We've seen, I remember a couple years
Steve
ago.
Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I remember there was an Alfred Hitchcock, pair of Alfred Hitchcock biopics. There was one other one I'm thinking of, but I can't think of what it was. Capote had
Yeah,
two.
there's two to 'em.
So I think there's room for another one. We can see
Yeah.
the other one, and then
Yeah.
people will compare and be like, "Oh, there's no
And
comparison."
you know what they'll say is they'll say that the dark one isn't as fun.
Absolutely, and
exactly.
it won't
Yeah.
make as much money, and
No.
Yeah.
but maybe it'll only cost $20 million, and win somebody an Oscar.
But it'll probably be a better story.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly think Rami Malek was amazing,
I agree.
but I actually think Sasha would have probably been better.
Mm.
I know, but you can't ever say what didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, any last thoughts, guys, on this?
I'm echoing Jamie's statement earlier that picking a short period of time
Yep.
to encapsulate a person's life is way better for cinematic storytelling than doing the greatest hits where you're rushing through 50 stories. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as my lesson.
Ah.
But what I'll say is for writers, look into these biopics, these true stories. I mean, put it into your mind, like what is something you're really into or have a lot of knowledge. It might be a subject for your next screenplay as well. So
Do stuff inspired by.
Inspired by Rudy.
I think kind of along those lines, do like the lesser known stories that you can kind of get away with riffing a little more, and it won't change history so much.
Yeah,
it'll
like
just
the
be-
Rudy.
Like Rudy.
Yeah.
I think
If you
Rudy's
haven't
a good
seen
example.
Rudy, it's fantastic.
Yeah, don't do like Rosa Parks and then she takes out a laser gun or
Yeah,
something
Jesus.
and starts shooting everyone on the bus. Yeah, don't change stuff that's well known.
Blackish had a Rosa Parks movie in it this week.
I did
Oh,
not
I
know
did
that.
not know that.
Wow.
All right, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
All right, guys.
Thanks
Good
for
job.
listening.
Thanks.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.